Some federal employees have started taking home bigger paychecks, but they'll get smaller checks at the start of next year. Nominee for Deputy Director for Management at the Office of Management and Budget, Michael Reardon, told you on Sunday how the mandatory payroll tax deferrals will work. Tony Reardon is the president of the National Treasury Employees Union. Tony, welcome. Thanks for coming back on the program. I note a press release on the NTEU website that is headlined, "Reardon asks OMB for details on payroll tax deferral." And I also note that it's dated September 2nd. Here we are toward the end of the month. What do you know now about these tax deferrals that you didn't know at the beginning of the month?
Well, we know that they are now being, that the Social Security, 6.2%, is now being deferred. And at that point, we did not. You know, Francis, let me just say this. This whole issue of the payroll tax deferral, I think it's outrageous that this was forced on federal employees. They weren't given an option to opt out, which in my view they should have been, and it was forced on them before they knew what the financial implications would be. And there were so many questions out there. When are they going to have to pay it back? Is it going to have to be paid back in a lump sum? Is it going to be paid back over the course of each individual pay period once we get into the new year? And so I think that was a real mistake. And I think federal employees deserve better. I think our civil service, our government should do a better job of taking care of employees. Let me just give you one example, Francis. So this just came up yesterday. We heard from a huge number of our chapter leaders and our members around the country, and they wanted to know, wait a second, we thought we were only subject to this deferral if we were making more than $3,999 a pay period. And in fact, that's what's been communicated. But what we heard was that there were people who were grossing more money than that who were getting the deferral. So more money was staying in their account. And so they were asking the logical question, what the heck's going on? So we went to the agency where we were hearing this primarily, and what they said to us is, we'll look into it, we'll get back to you. They just got back to us this morning. And here's what they said. They said that if you look at the gross salary and you subtract out pre-tax FEHB premiums, supplemental dental and vision premiums, flexible spending and health savings account deductions, and if that result, after you subtract that out from your gross, is $3,999 or less, then you are subject to the deferral. Now, I think this just proves my point that why is it that today, after people got paid, they're finding out about this? This is something that should have been communicated to federal employees long ago. And so I think just the entire handling of this, the lack of effective communication, the not providing people answers to just logical questions. What happens if you retire? And between now and when the money is paid back, what happens to you then? Those kinds of things. So that's a lot of an answer.
That's okay. Given that we are where we are, though, Tony, what do you want to see the agencies where you have members do now to comply with what you suggested to OMB Director Vogt? You wrote they deserve to be, they deserve to be fully educated on the impact the executive order will have on their paychecks and family budgets for months to come. We are where we are today. We can't fix that retroactively, but what would you like to see agencies do moving forward?
Well, I think they need to answer, all the questions that remain out there. People to this moment do not know exactly how they're going to have to go about paying back this money. So there are a lot of questions. I provided many of those in a letter to Mr. Vogt, and so I would suggest that they get these answers out to employees across the executive branch. I get it. Can't do anything about what's already happened, but you can certainly at least get people information so they know kind of where they go from here. And I think that's been sorely lacking.
Another item on your plate right now is paid parental leave, and there are some restrictions there that you are worried about. What are those restrictions?
Yeah, I'd be happy to go through those with you, Francis. But before I do that, there is one thing that I'd want to mention, because I would take some issue with one of the things that Mr. Regis said on your program on Sunday. Here are the facts. The administration did not support this program. It only became law when Democrats in Congress insisted that the only way that the White House would get their Space Force was to include paid parental leave for federal employees in the defense bill. So the only new leave program that the administration really supported would have required workers to borrow the leave against their own Social Security benefits, which is not at all the same thing that actually ultimately was passed. Now, with regard to the comments that we provided to OPM on their proposed rule, we always take a really hard look at OPM's proposed regulations to make sure that any administration implements the law in the way that Congress intended. And so we put our comments in writing to OPM a few days ago, and I'll just give you a couple of examples of concerns that we have. Generally speaking, I would say that it appears the proposed rule unnecessarily restricts the program in some ways, making it harder for employees to use. And I don't believe that is what Congress intended. So, for example, we think there could be a problem for those whose baby arrives earlier than expected. Right now, OPM says no one can retroactively elect paid parental leave unless they were physically or mentally incapable of doing so before the baby arrived. Now, obviously, if the baby arrives early and the parent immediately goes on leave, the parent should still be allowed to elect it after the fact. OPM's proposed rule would seem to make that impossible for the non-birthing parent. So that's something that we believe needs to be fixed. And then the next thing that I would mention is that, related to the agency discretion is a provision in the draft regulations that allow an agency to require additional examinations or certifications of a serious health condition that keeps an employee from returning to work after the 12 weeks of leave. Now, in my view, frankly, the certification from the employee's healthcare provider should be enough, and employees who are ill should not have to jump through additional hoops just to satisfy some arbitrary request for another medical exam.
Tony, apologies, we're just about out of time, but thank you very much as always for coming on. Look forward to having you back.
Absolutely. Thank you, Francis.